Welcome back to The Watch, and I am joined by someone new. Marcus, how are you, mate?
I am doing well. I'm very happy to be here. I wasn't expecting to be here, but yeah, I'm looking forward to this, especially seeing as what we're going to be talking about. I want to speak to so many people about it, but so few have watched it.
Because you might have noticed we did do a call to valiant men or women out there to join us, and Marcus, you answered that call.
I did answer that call, and I do have to say though, you are a cruel man for making me watch TLJ again. That was
a lot of people had to.
It was terrible to see that movie again. By the way, it's still terrible. All right, it's still just beyond crap. I couldn't. I was trying to do it by going through characters. It's too much, just too much. But let's talk about something good, not crap.
It was your pain, the genuine pain that you shared in that review. I was just like, I want that pain. I'm going to use that pain.
It all came back.
But good thing we don't have to talk about something painful.
Yeah,
we're going to talk about House of Dragons.
Yeah, I know, right?
But before we even do that, guys, I've extended the graphic novel campaign. And so, Enemies of Self, the graphic novel adaptation of my book, if you hadn't had a chance to get it, we've extended it by 2 weeks. So grab it while you can. It's going crazy. It's going really well. And I'm so excited about that. So Indiegogo, you can get the second edition novel that it's based on as well. You can get it in collector covers, hardcover, and... oh boy, I'm excited because that's all getting reinvested to make more projects, and I want to know how far we can push it. So grab it while you can. Link in the description. And now, House of Dragon. So we reviewed, or mostly I reviewed.
Yeah.
House of the Dragon. My wife joined me on some because I was one of the few people that watched it. But Marcus has watched it.
I have watched it all, mostly at your recommendation, and Nedrotic and even Mauler, who was more jaded than me. So when everyone started going, oh, this actually ain't too bad, and I was watching Rings of Power because massive Lord of the Rings fan, I needed to be reminded that there is some good stuff out there, and House of the Dragon provided that for me. It was therapy.
I could feel your dead soul inside when you
Here's the thing: you had a week between each of those episodes. Due to certain circumstances, I had to binge to catch up with Rings of Power, and it's as painful as you can imagine, people. Gosh. It really is.
It is so bad. We're talking about Rings of Power because it's bad.
It'll be a good point of comparison.
It will. An actual fact, I love that we have this point in comparison. And so what we're doing in this video, we want to do like a series, season 1, overview. Retrospective on, now we can kind of comment on some overall arcs.
Yeah.
Okay. If you haven't seen the episode by episode reviews I did, we'll try and avoid spoilers to begin with, give our rating for the whole season, and then talk about some of the details. And so overall, this is masterful.
Yeah, it specifically with one particular character, but a lot of the other ones, I don't want to discredit any of those. They are strong.
You're talking about Viserys,
I am talking about Viserys. He's what highlight.
It's amazing. He made the show for me.
Yep.
His progression was done better than any other character, especially with the time jump. See, there are is it perfect? No. In fact, there is a big hiccup, but overall, the things that they did well, they did really well. And Viserys was basically flawless for me.
Yeah.
They did big time jumps between a lot of episodes.
Yeah. And
I think with some of the characters, they failed to show the effect of time on them well enough.
Yeah.
We're talking about over 30 years, I think.
Easily. It would have to be around that. Definitely there are some characters that are left a little bit. I think probably the biggest one would be Harwin Strong was a bit left over. That came out of, that was an interesting development.
There's a lot. I think, for instance, Sir Cole.
Kristen Coleson.
Daemon, you could get away with it because Targaryens, they're not exactly kind of human. They have
as I understand,
they have dragon blood in them,
Yeah, as I understand it, they do. There's, I'm not sure. Targaryens are always a bit funny to talk about because they're supposed to be kind of like elves for George, but
Kind
they're also
of.
humans.
Yeah,
so
I've heard that comparison before as well. It was Gary Nerdrotic.
Yeah, he made that comparison.
And so I think you could get away with it with Damon.
Yeah.
But like, so Cole, I think
No.
just at least some graying on the sides. And look, like people, I'm grey. I'm starting to get the grey. Do you see the grey here? It's a mask of wisdom.
People age.
It's like, and just something subtle. Even if you're not adding wrinkles, because there are people who don't seem to age, but you can kind of look at Tom Cruise. Okay, he's like he doesn't age, but you can still see the effect, and they could have at least done that. The thing is though, with Viserys, flawlessly, they even have his hairline receding and him slowly.
Honestly, there are points where you can just even judge the time jumps just by looking at him.
Yeah.
And you get the idea. Oh, it must be. The disease has gotten worse. This must be a couple of years down the line.
It was done so well. Now, one of the big concerns I had with House of the Dragon, and I think a lot of people had, but this was not an unwarranted concern, was that this was going to be just another one of the shows that put the message as the primary thing. And if you saw what the actors and one of the showrunners who has left the show, thank goodness now, was
Good
saying,
riddance. Go away, director of The Long Night. Stop making your stuff dark. Please.
They were just watching on the wrong TV.
I suppose. Yeah, I know, right?
And so there was those comments, right? And then even the trailer really pushed this, it's men that ruins everything. And men would rather see the world burn, have the world burn than see a woman on the Iron Throne or something like that.
Yeah, I remember that. That was when I was like, no, thank you. I don't want to. I'm staying away from this.
I know. They were really shooting themselves in the foot with their marketing, right?
Yeah, they were.
And the thing is, though, in context, the character who actually does say that line, it makes sense for that line.
Yeah, brainies.
And then when the show comes, the overall message was actually, if you say that there are woke elements, I would then say, okay, I'll probably still argue those individual elements because a lot of it is very in line with the characters' perspectives. But then I would counter and say it has some really awesome traditional elements that actually woke people would hate. Like, it has one of them, like, for instance, one of the things in like that, modern feminists really like push is the inherent violent nature of men, and and then all the problems in the world is because men are in leadership and they have women in leadership, and the fact is women can be as aggressive and as willing for conflict as men. Easily so. The difference is usually how they express the willingness to be in conflict. Men, they're stronger than women, and so our natural first kind of tool in our bag is, of course, strength.
Physical strength, yeah.
And the altercations between men, we all know, like men know subconsciously that there's a threat of violence in the air.
Oh, yeah. Always.
And that can actually breed interesting restraint in men because they know if they cross a certain line, that's, both guys know, that's the line that it's on, right? And unless either of them are willing to go there, they have a kind of level of restraint. What's interesting, in a lot of conflicts between women and men, women don't have that line because they know that they can get away with more before most men would be willing to be violent, which is why women are more than happy to slap a man and feel perfectly fine. And so that's just one cultural example that women are actually, in a lot of cases, easily willing to be as violent as men.
Or even manipulate men to be as violent for their purposes, which we see a lot of in this show.
Yes! Right? And on that note, right? That is actually a shockingly base depiction of just reality.
Well, I mean, it's happened all throughout history. You can look at any period in time. I personally look at Rome. You really think that Brutus's wife wasn't responsible for Caesar's, Because I guarantee you, just look at the sources, you'll see. It's always happened. So it's good to see it here.
It's in the show. And so if people say that there's the woke kind of messaging, the thing is though, well, the show actually has some remarkably based stuff in where they reflect the natural and very common relationships between men and women near perfectly, right? There are women that get men to be violent for them,
yes,
right?
There are.
Okay, sorry, did I say women or men? I forget. They're women who get men to be violent for them. And then there are men who are remarkably peaceful. In actual fact, the most peace-seeking character in the entire show is a man. And is my favorite character in the show. And not only that, he is a doting father who loves his family and children, and he takes on responsibility and tries to be the best leader he can be.
Yeah.
In actual fact, out of all the people who are in positions of leadership, even though he makes mistakes, he is by far the best leader. And people say he's an awful one because he made all these mistakes. He was listening to counsel.
If anything, you know what Viserys taught me? Is that maintaining peace is way more difficult than sometimes even war. War, at least, once you have your opponent and you declare war on them, it becomes a little bit more simple. You got to try and wipe them out, force them to surrender. Viserys has to negotiate so many different things. He's got to deal with his daughter. He's got to deal with the manipulations of Otto Hightower. He's got to deal with all of this stuff.
The grudges and offences between the different houses, and if he does anything positive to one house, another house might get really offended by that.
I believe he said that in one of the episodes where he's like... What was the line?
He's like that. Like, you see, Alison asked him what bothered him, and he basically says that I am forever cursed or something. That
I'm forever doomed to anger one house and the pleasing of another, something like that.
It was just such a good line.
Yeah, it was.
And you could really see it because that was the reality.
Yeah,
it was such a good show. And so these, like the depiction of manhood, it shows negative aspects of you could say even toxic masculinity.
Oh yeah.
Because I'm not perfectly I am perfectly fine for people to admit that there's such a thing as toxic masculinity.
Oh, yeah.
I'm totally against
Aegon.
I'm totally against vilifying virtuous, positive masculinity, which is just simply called masculinity, as entirely toxic.
Yeah.
Also, perfectly fine with toxic masculinity so long as people acknowledge that there is toxic femininity.
Oh, yeah.
And we see that in this show.
Yes.
Like there is...
Yes, we do.
There is one character in particular that have men in love with her, and she uses their affection to get them to be obedient to her, to get her to serve him, even to the point of that these men are so loyal to her, they will commit murder.
Not just murder, but also murder of significant ones to their lives.
Yes. And that is extreme toxic femininity, right? Yeah. But the show has... And so it's actually a very balanced depiction. And you do have the characters that feel, men are sexist and they won't have women on the throne. But guess what? There are women who believe that in the show as well.
Oh, yeah.
So overall, in terms of its depiction of, I guess, woke ideology, it's remarkably fair and balanced, which is what we want!
Yeah, you can have all these elements, and you know what the best part about House of Dragon? It justifies all of this. That character you mentioned that's toxic, she does it for a very good reason, because her position, she needs to be manipulative to hold it, and to even allow for her own family to benefit from it, because she's been drilled into her head something very dark is coming, unless she does this.
So many great things. The progression of the characters, they go through really consistent arcs towards the end.
Oh, yeah.
And some characters are consistent, some characters change for valid reasons. Yeah. And there were characters that I disliked over others, and then towards the end that shifted because of how they were acting and being portrayed.
Yeah.
And
lots of the progression was very logical. You can see how they started out, and you can easily see why they would become the way they become.
Acting was top notch.
Oh, it was from everyone. I mean, and they changed cast a lot, and somehow everyone was able to do their part and do it well, and still resemble like the previous cast.
Well, I mean, there was some.
There was a few that couldn't. But there was a lot that did.
It's interesting. For instance, Aemond.
That's who I was referencing.
He did not look like his younger self at all. But the thing is, though, the actor that they have for older Aemond was just
the traits carry along, and that's
so perfect. And he has certain physical traits that are very distinctive that'll be really hard to find in a younger actor.
Yeah.
And so I know that was a seeming like real world limitation that I'm happy to accept just for the best, because the kid's acting was great.
Oh yes.
And then they got the perfect guy for Aemond in his older, so the fact that he looks nothing alike. All right. This is one of those things where I will push to suspend my disbelief because the result, the goal, was so worthwhile. And this is where I kind of talk about this sometimes. That sometimes you find a situation in which pushing aside pure perfect realism
Yeah.
is actually necessary for a better payoff. Sometimes I do the rule of cool,
Yeah.
or I do the awesome factor or fun factor or emotional payoff. It needs to be really good. And in this instance, it's getting the right actor for the job. And so
Yeah.
if I was in the same position, I had these choices. Excuse me. So whoever's editing that cut, of course, me cleaning out, I would totally have made the same choice.
Yeah.
I get that completely. So anyway, acting was flawless. Oh my goodness. These sets, costumes.
Oh, yes. It's good to see that George was finally listened to.
Yes.
Because there's some really...
Sorry, we'll start from it's good to see.
It's good to see that we actually get proper armor that looks like it could have come from that period.
Yeah, and George has this preference.
He does.
He's actually a medieval enthusiast, just true to my heart. Right? Love you, George. And one of the, his descriptions of many of the places in Westeros, especially King's Landing stuff, very medieval inspired.
Yeah.
He even said King's Landing was more supposed to look like medieval. I think it was France.
Yeah, Paris.
Paris. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so. The King's Landing in Game of Thrones actually doesn't look,
well,
it's
actually,
more Spanish, and
it definitely looks Spanish. It was.
I think they even filmed in some
Croatia.
locations in, was it Croatia?
Yeah, it was Croatia.
And so the fact that it's even more medieval, because you look at the Game of Thrones compared to House of the Dragon, right? The armor is better. The swords and weapons are better. The castles, there are some new castles that just look perfect. And I think that was not only George's influence, but people who just took more care and consideration.
Absolutely. It just looks better. It feels more authentic.
And it makes it more immersive as well.
As a result, yeah, absolutely. Immersion goes through the roof in this show.
I saw what looked to be like jupons and tabards over armor with heraldry on it. And the heraldry is really important in this universe. I saw, falchions and more unknown but actual authentic medieval weaponry. And the sword designs, just like...
I want Blackfire.
Blackfire.
Give me Blackfire.
And so there's two that I really like. There's a King's one and Daemon's one.
Daemon's... Damn, what was his one?
I forget. Something Sister, is it?
Dark Sister.
Dark
That's
Sister. Blackfire and Dark Sister. Those were good. I would definitely buy reproductions of those swords. They were just chef's kiss perfect. Love them. And you compare it to some of the supposed fancy... they were supposed to be fancy swords in Game of Thrones, but... They were overly designed, poorly proportioned, cheap wall hangers.
Oathkeeper was... I actually had a LARP version of Oathkeeper. It's... Oh, that handle is terrible.
So hang on. Is that the one that...
Jaime's.
It
was Jaime's sword, and then he gives it to Brienne.
Yes, that one is the exact one I was thinking of when I was saying that. It was just
I'm not a fan of that one.
I'm actually not even a fan of Jon Snow's one. What's the claw?
Really? Longclaw?
The wolf head is facing... wrong direction for the way you would usually hold a sword. It's not horrible. I'm purist, I'm nitpicky. I like
how George described it there.
Yeah, compare Longclaw to Dark Sister.
Oh yeah, it's no comparison.
So I found great enjoyment in the immersion that all of that offered. And so we're going through main points of praise, and what you'll notice here, there's so many things to praise.
There really is.
When I say the writing is phenomenal, okay? They set up such great payoffs and conflict to the point where I don't think there was a wasted scene in this season.
If anything, it felt like they could have even added more. Because there was actually something that I found out. There was a whole wedding scene with Viserys and Alicent that was cut. Really? And they had an elaborate dress and everything. I was like, what?
Serious?
That would have been interesting to see her reactions and how Viserys is feeling about the whole thing, but... It's clear they had way more, so...
Special features.
Extended
cut. And then, so you have, all these setups and payoffs and arcs and the dialogue, but when I'm saying that there was nothing wasted, compare this.
Rings of Power.
There were huge chunks that did nothing. And I mean nothing to progress the plot.
Yeah, nothing.
Nathan and I point this out multiple times in our episode reviews. You could cut entire chunks And not only would nothing be lost, a lot of times in these chunks that are getting cut, they establish the characters poorly, they have poor dialogue, and they make the characters more unlikable, or they make things more confusing, or contradict things that's already there. And so the show, Rings of Power, would actually be better for cutting those things. That's how extreme it goes. And compare that to House of Dragons, where if you cut anything, you might be missing things in plot and character development.
With Rings of Power, you can cut whole episodes. With House of the Dragon, you could cut a scene and you'd lose something important.
So look at how efficient and precise that writing is.
Yeah.
That's a massive compliment to just the competence of the writing on display. And then the dialogue is punchy, so there's sometimes really good witty exchanges. But like, think about that line that Viserys said when we were saying, that I'm forever... we can't remember it exactly, but it was...
Forever doomed to anger one in the pleasing of another. Something like that.
That's like such a well-written line, because it has like pages of context that you could, if you wanted to explain the justification of that line and what it means, you could write a page or several pages just on what's in that line.
Easily, because especially, and it helps that line is delivered after angering a whole bunch of lords with numerous decisions, but that's just what it takes to be king in Westeros. It's not an easy job, and Viserys is the key example of that, and every line he delivers, it's clear that he would be a lot happier if he wasn't king, but he's dutiful.
Yes.
Very dutiful to his family, his kingdom.
And to remain peace.
And to keep peace. Keep the peace of Jacaerys, I think his name
remain peace. Maintain peace. That's the word I was trying to get. And love Viserys for that as well. And they really did depict the weight of leading this world, what it would be, how difficult it is. And one of the takeaways that you really get from House of the Dragon, but really you take this away from Game of Thrones, is like, you don't want to be king in this world.
No, you do not.
Like, it'll be the worst thing ever.
Westeros is a very tough place to live.
And so writing was masterful, and it has one of the better emotional payoffs I've had in a while, but like up there with Top Gun Maverick with emotional payoff. But then take those two examples, there's so few in any recent media in years.
And that's the thing. Those moments, we'll get into it, but those moments are very quiet. There's no big action scenes. There's no big explosions. There's nothing. It's really simple, and it makes it hit like a massive truck.
And so, there's no big action in the moment we're specifically talking about, but there is big action in the show. In fact,
there is.
The action in the show was really satisfying. In fact, there is a fight between children that is more emotionally impactful, and you get invested in it far more than any fight or battle in Rings of Power.
Also more consequences.
There's greater consequences. The choreography is better. The acting is better. The hits land with more impact and they actually look like they connect.
I started just thinking of Rings of Power and the horse charge thing.
You can see it doesn't even touch, and then the orc explodes.
Yes, because that's how that works.
I mean, my goodness.
House of the Dragon does not do that. The action is very... I would actually say it's simple and brutal. That's probably... It doesn't need to be flashy. It just needs to keep it grounded, and it chose to keep it very grounded.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that House of Dragon came out at the same time as Rings of Power, I know...
I don't know how that happened, but...
It was intentional by HBO. I think they waited to hear the release of Rings of Power, and then they announced their release later. But the thing is, though... I almost feel that it feels a bit too serendipitous to be accident almost, because the fact that House Dragon was so good and has been doing everything that we've been asking media to do for a while, and then Rings of Power is when I say opposite, it is probably one of the worst shows I've ever watched in terms of doubling down onto wokeness, tick boxes, the right representations and pushing that in the media and all that stuff.
I think I got a bit of pushback from this from mates. It's on the level of Halo. That's how bad Rings of Power is. It might even be below.
To me, it's worse than Halo. Yeah, and Halo was like one of the worst things I had ever seen up to that point, and Rings of Power surpassed it. It is like one of the worst shows I've ever watched. Unironic. I'm not just trying to be mean for the sake of it. It's that bad.
No, it really is. The thing is with Rings of Power is there's not a single... You don't have a single character you can even latch onto. There's nothing there. And all the dialogue... Oh, jeez.
But this is the thing, right? And so with the fact that they both came out and they are the best contrasting examples in either extreme of recent memory is almost providential, because the contrast of just pointing out to one to the other is amazing because of how extremely good one is and how unbelievably and extreme bad the other is, to the point where this comparison, it just shows the failings in Rings of Power so good, because there's some people might just try, like, if House of the Dragon wasn't around with Rings of Power, there could have been people trying to say, oh no, the writing is actually good, you just, you need to get into stuff like, it's like, now what we can do is like, no, here is good writing, contrast and compare. Okay,
look at this one. This one is not a turd. This one is a turd.
Yes,
go for the one that's not a turd.
You see, there is a tendency to get a sense of normalization to things that you're exposed to a lot.
Oh, it's happening. I guarantee you it's happening. A lot of my friends are just getting used to it, especially with the stuff Marvel's pumping out.
Exactly. Marvel just wants to, especially Star Wars, just wants to desensitize people to quality, so that they turn their brain off and are not paying attention, and they can just get hooked in by the jangling keys. You remember Boba Fett, don't you? Lightsabers, Baby Yoda, and Luke Skywalker.
Remember Rings?
And so, I'm not kidding. I really think that's what they've been trying to do, and they've been sailing off of member berries, and it's a type of abuse in mind where they're taking advantage of people's nostalgia in a really manipulative and like scummy way, okay, for their own profit and benefit, to make people desensitized to quality because they've just been getting crap. And as a result, if there wasn't such a contrasting thing of quality when Rings of Power came out, I worry that I still think people would have hated it, but not as much, because they wouldn't have been able to realize just how bad it really is.
Well, there's this weird thing going on regarding Rings of Power where people are saying, "Oh, it got better towards the end," which when I heard that, I was very confused, and I still don't understand why that's being said. Those were like the worst episodes. With House of the Dragon, it was like, oh yeah, it's good, a little bump, and then good again.
So it peaked at episode 8 by far for me.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, episode 8 was phenomenal.
Honestly, you could have ended on episode 8. I would have been happy.
I would be happy too. There was a hiccup in episode 9, but episode 10 finishes very well.
Which, as a book fan, it was cool to see that scene. It was really nice.
Okay, so like I said, we will contrast with Rings of Power because it's a really important point of comparison, because what it also does, it helps lift House of the Dragon to show how good House of the Dragon is.
Yeah, and that show deserves it, considering what it was up against. This show is following the disaster that was season 8.
Yes, like think about Rings of Power had so much goodwill, had like a healthy franchise, had a fan base who would have loved a good Lord of the Rings thing, right?
I'll put my hand up. I would have loved it. And Second Age could easily have equaled House of the Dragon. It would easily, but they just didn't. They chose the identity politics route. They chose intersectionalism. They chose all that.
Exactly. The marketing instantly revealed their agenda and bias. And then when the first trailer came out, it was everyone realized from the get-go, and I love the Tolkien fan base. They didn't let them get away with anything. But the thing is, though, it is true. They did have goodwill because there was such a healthy franchise that they were trying to build off of, and they just not only ruined it, they actually crapped on the fan base, calling them, well, if you have a problem with this casting, because one of the big like warning signs for everyone was, the casting, is like, hey, hang on, there's no black dwarves described in Lord of the Rings. We just want it true to the source material. You're racist, and so they started attacking a avidly like engaged and enthusiastic fan base. You friggin' morons. Now,
well done, by the way. I'm glad that worked out for you. Yeah. How's that going? You getting those ratings?
The thing is, unfortunately, House of the Dragons kind of did that to a little bit, because there was a house, a family that were traditionally white, now recast as black. It was the Valerians.
Yeah, they did do that. That was an odd one, but at least, all right, it was a race swap. Yeah, but they still made it. They made it work.
They made it work, and this is the thing, right? When Rings of Power came out, if you look at our reviews, at not one point, not a single time, and I know because I don't judge a show based on this, right? Did we say bad show because it has the wrong casting? We judged it on its merits. And Deezer actually was one of the more likable characters until the end, where they managed to ruin her as well.
I don't know how they did that. Every character that they could have made likable, they just became terrible.
It's incredible. And so, but that's the same standard we do with House of the Dragon. It came out, and turns out that the guy who was cast in the role, he did the role really well, and there was a really important role he's playing in the story, and no one blinked. And just like no one actually blinked with the new, like people cast in Rings of Power, we judge it on its merits. Yep. But the thing is, okay, so House of Dragon, right? There was a comparison we're talking about where, because Rings of Power had like this healthy fan base, House of the Dragon had a very uphill battle. Not only did they have a massively jaded and disenfranchised
people are openly up in arms against it coming out.
Okay.
I was even one of them. I was like, just go away.
Yes.
Don't bother. You squandered your great chance. You could have had a healthy franchise going forward, but HBO let Dan and Dave destroy everything. So that was... But... I gotta give it to HBO. Well, whatever they did.
Well, this is the thing, because so they had the jaded fan base, lesser interest in it, and all that because of all their disappointment with how Game of Thrones ended. Then there were some poor marketing choices.
Yes.
I don't think they attacked the fans nearly as much as Rings of Power did, and they didn't make such a huge thing of it. But there was horrible marketing.
It still feels like it was standard for like this day and age of entertainment.
You don't give it a pass though.
Of course not.
But you're right. It is standard, but that standard is dog crap and needs to die. Okay.
It'd be nice if it did.
Yeah.
But I still think we got a long road ahead.
Light is it? Because hey, new media is rising. Whatever.
Hands, go get it.
Yeah, like seriously, and that's enabling me to do more. I've already registered a comic book company to make more, the other volumes of Shadow the Conqueror, but space opera, All-Star. Think about it. More on that later. And even more. The better that this campaign goes, the more I can do, because House of Dragons is like a refreshing,
it's a good step.
Quenching of thirst in a drought, but the drought is still there, people. And so, all right, if they're gonna ruin it, we will build something new from the ashes of the old regime, and it's already starting, and good things are on the horizon. And so, House of Dragon, there was that poor marketing, everything, uphill battle, and yet they made something good, and they showed that you can overcome some big things set against you with the jaded fan base and everything with pure quality.
Yep.
Okay.
That's all it takes, I mean, Amazon, you're not going to do it, but you could have the same thing.
Well, they need. It's so weird, right? Because it was a bit bizarre when the first few episodes came out, and I had a discussion with Nathan on this as well, where the show, what was actually in the show, there wasn't a huge agenda thing. In actual fact, there were some universal truths in that really are uplifting. And one other thing, I'm getting sidetracked, but this is important.
Oh, yeah.
Drinker pointed out in his season review that they showed something really great in regards to their heroic nature of women, and it's their sacrifices, the sacrifice that they undergo through childbirth.
It's funny, House of Dragon really just brought up just how little we really see of that, because that is a big deal.
It is a big deal,
especially for back then.
I mean, and so I'm a father. I got 5 children, and tell you what, when you're there, even with the birth of your first child, and then understand the amount of respect that I now have for what women go through in childbirth is next level. It's I'm amazed, and this is the great battlefield that most women for the vast majority of history have faced it bravely, and have come out victorious again, and sometimes sacrificed their lives in the process, which is heartbreaking. But so many women and mothers are willing to do that for the love of their children, love of their family, also love of their husbands. It's all associated with that, and this show actually did tremendous respect to that.
It did. Even just in the first episode, it did it.
It really did, okay? And they there were commentaries trying to hijack
of course
that
there
thing.
were.
And we have a dedicated video pushing back against that, where it was like a man taking away a woman's right to choose, bull crap he did. Bull crap. The circumstances of that scene were nowhere near what they were trying to... Some people were trying to say.
If they wanted to push that message, they should have taken when she's in the bath out, because the bath scene is... completely discredits whatever they were saying.
Exactly. We don't want to get to spoilers.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. So the show depicts women really well, actually, both in the good and the bad, okay? Because women are, they're neither better nor worse than men. But
They're humans.
But they are different to men, and they have different challenges that they need to face that is uniquely, that is unique to women.
Yeah.
And childbirth is one of those things, and they, if you want to show women truly kicking ass and taking on something that is tremendously difficult and painful and stuff, you don't need to give them a sword, right?
No, you don't.
Okay? Because there's something that women have done for all of human history that is astounding and deserves great respect.
More so than they even get.
And shows incredible strength.
Yeah.
Okay? And the show did that. The show, I acknowledge the show, and I'm makes me like it even more. That was wonderful. And that was intentional. It was interesting. They tried to hijack it in part because they said that they wanted to show that the women's battlefield is this is in the show, the women's battlefield is the child bed or birthing bed.
Yeah. That's been said a lot in that series.
But then they tried to hijack it and then say, oh, it was men trying to control women, forcing them into that role. But the show doesn't do that because the show demonstrates women willingly and wanting to do that.
Exactly.
For great reasons, the benefit of the realm, the love of their children, wanting to have children, all those things.
It was really bizarre just seeing how the show just contradicted everything they said constantly. Especially in the after episode things, which they really should stop doing those. It makes them look really silly.
Yeah. And again, if they're trying to say that there's this woke agenda in the show, one of the kind of big pushes with feminism is that motherhood is something to be avoided. Do a career. You're empowered with your career, and motherhood takes away, your freedoms and chains you to the kitchen. Is a kind of talking place. This show shows multiple women wanting to be mothers.
Oh yeah.
So
and actually being good mothers at times as well,
and also bad mothers,
sometimes
really bad mothers. But there are such good complexities where there are great characters, there are characters that are both good and bad, there are characters that are really dynamic. Damon is so dynamic. He is a wild card in every scene.
He really is.
And so, looking at the main things to praise in this show, we have talking a lot about the writing. We've talked about the sets. We've talked about acting. We talked about overall arcs, and there's such great emotional payoffs. Man, so this show is like an 8 or a 9 out of 10 for me. I have almost a division where I need to separate my ratings between how much I like it and how much I feel
I'm
is
feeling the same
objective thing. My enjoyment of the show is like a 9 out of 10. Objectively, there are some things that there's a big hiccup in one of the episodes that, and there's some errors here and there, which make me think about a good solid 8 out of 10, which is a very generous score still. What's your kind of view on it?
Just trying to think, because I'd probably go the same as you with the two different ratings. It's definitely probably a high 9 for my enjoyment of it, because I was not expecting to like it as much as I did, and I wasn't expecting it to get as much out of it as I did. But what I think overall in quality is I'd probably be safe at an 8 as well.
Yeah,
because there are, like you said, certain hiccups that just bring it down just a little bit.
There's a big one in episode 9, which is so
I would actually argue there are 2.
Yeah?
Yeah, there are 2 ones in there.
Well, all right. Spoilers now, and we'll talk about some specifics. This is your warning, and now we're getting spoilers. What is the other one?
I think Kingmaker, Kristen Cole's moment. That's because that's the moment where the council is pretty much hard set now against turning on Rhaenyra.
Yeah.
And I think for a character.
So which action? Which action?
When he kills Beesbury.
Oh,
by accident.
Yeah.
Which I found a bit
too contrived.
Yeah, that was
like.
I mean, it's not as bad as the other one, but
I can see why they did it. They were really trying to soften Alicent's depiction to not make her come off as a full tyrant, and so they wanted to give her plausible deniability. Where in the books, I've been told she was written more like "We're taking the throne, baby."
Yeah, she was.
And so. This isn't me excusing because I do think the execution was poor. I see why they tried to go that way, but there were better ways that they could have done it.
It just makes me worried for the future of Kristen Cole, because he's supposed to have Tywin moments in the future.
Yeah.
I won't go
No spoilers.
Of course not.
Yeah.
But it does. he's got to have that hardline moment eventually, and I thought it should have been this one, but they decided to go a different route, which I found a bit.
Yeah, and
well.
there are those moments, and so I still do have a couple of questions that. The show does this interesting thing where it doesn't explain everything, and for the vast majority, it's to its credit.
Oh, yeah.
Where the context of why things are happening is very easy to intuit by the given scene. Again, very much to the show's credit. But then there are sometimes moments in which I think a little bit more explanation would have served well.
It would have.
So, because at the moment, I still don't know what led to Cole killing the Knight of the Kisses, was it? Or
Oh, yeah. Mr. Longmouth.
Yes. And all we know is that he received what seemed to be no consequences for it.
Yeah, that was weird. I mean, I love that episode.
It was a great episode.
But the gap definitely leaves that question in the air, because instantly a King's Goal would be thrown out.
Like, I was willing to try and justify it more than I probably should have to do, basically, because I criticize shows where to fill in plot holes the audience needs to make up their own headcanon to explain it. And for me to explain why he doesn't get punished and things, I'm needing to dive into my own headcanon when the show could have just given us maybe one or two little hints that might have helped about. Like I don't
know, maybe frame Sir Joffrey, maybe frame him as like trying to ruin the wedding.
All it would have taken is someone to say that whoever the guy's name was again, like
Knight of Kisses.
Knight of Kisses.
Kissing Knight. There we go.
He acted in a threatening way to Rhaenyra.
Yeah, there you go.
Would have solved it.
Yeah, instantly. And then he went too far, but at the same time, it's justified now if we go with that one. But it's not there.
Yeah.
I know it's an impactful scene, admittedly, but you can't do an impactful scene and not have a good
something could have held. It doesn't ruin the show by
no, it
far,
doesn't.
The thing is, though, in terms of needing to come up with your own headcanon, this is a situation where it's actually not difficult. I'm not having to jump through hoops and bend over backwards and reach to find an explanation, which oftentimes in bad shows you do.
Luckily, they had set up at that point that he's in good with Queen Alicent, and she's clearly sees that he's been spurned, and she can use that. It's a tool that would be very good to make use of, and she does. So it's it just would have helped with just that little bit of explanation.
Now, the biggest fail in the show is, of course, Rhaenys's girl power moment, where she killed at least 1,000, if not multiple thousands, of innocent people, which...
Stop reminding me of Season 8!
It was exactly a Season 8 moment of spectacle over substance. And they didn't set it up or justify it. And this is where... trying to justify it with your own headcanon, the audience should... This is such a massive plot hole, expecting the audience to try and answer this huge, stupid moment is a failing in the show. No. This is such a big error and plot hole and dum-dum moment that's so out of character with Rhaenys. They needed to justify it better.
A character assassinates her. It creates a big question as to now, okay, so she's killed all these people. King Aegon is now justified. As soon as she did that, Aegon II's allowed to be a thing.
That could have worked, right? Because again, they could have pulled it off if they just justified it. Like for instance, a couple of ways. She did it where because she felt the I guess the benefit was worth the sacrifice of these innocents.
I still feel like there was a better way to do it. Maybe just, all right, you're in the dragon pit. Why come?
Well, because if we take it that she wanted to end the war right then, and she knows that millions will die, and she has a chance to end it right here. She has a dragon. They're right up there. And, okay, it's a cost-benefit thing. A few thousand people might die here for the sake of saving millions.
Yeah. Okay. Instead, they decided, I'm still undecided on which side I'm on.
And this is the thing, though. This is actually a legitimate, logical conundrum that comes up in war.
Yeah.
That actually we have a perfect example, and it's the bombing of Hiroshima. Okay.
Oh yeah.
The Japanese showed that they would fight to the last man standing, and all the ground that they took in a lot of these other islands like Iwo Jima and things like that, they showed that a ground-based war with Japan would be bloody and long. okay, to conquer, and Japan would not surrender. They felt it like a badge of pride to take out as many of the enemy, the Allies, as they could with their defeat. All right,
kamikazes.
All right, and so there's this cost benefit. The only way to truly get them to surrender then was to hit them with something so hard, a sledgehammer so massive that could shake them to their core and get them to surrender. And so the cost exchange that they had to decide was, we can bomb them, and there will be innocent people caught in the crossfire, a lot will be lost, but this will actually in the long run save more Japanese lives by forcing them to surrender by hitting them so hard, and even more important to them, it would save so many American lives as well. That's
like a complex thing that they definitely should have capitalized on, because that happens in war
does.
all the time.
It does.
I think there's like a Julius Caesar diary where he was even talking about sacking Gallic villages just so the others would surrender and it would be at less of a problem. This comes up all the time, and it easily could have been done, but they didn't do it.
It's a really intriguing, not saying it's a good thing, but it's a really intriguing, complex thing, nature of war, where sometimes greater acts of violence might need to be done to prevent even greater violence of a larger scale down the track.
Yeah, and this is perfectly in line with the universe that George has set up. I mean, that's the whole point of the Red Wedding.
Yeah. And so all they needed to do was have Rainey's commit to trying to wipe out the Greens, and have the Greens, as soon as they see the dragon pop up, try and escape.
Or, here's another idea that I saw from a comment, have Aegon's dragon Sunfire come in.
And yes, like, there are so many ways, right? And the thing is, Rainey's ends up siding with the Blacks anyway.
Yeah.
And so it's frustrating. They could have had their cake and eaten it too. That's the thing. They could have had the girl boss moment that they would... And by the way, it's just a boss moment because there were boy boss moments in this. Daemon kicked ass in this battle. Oh, that reminded me... Because there's another big dumb moment that was really hard to justify, and I think this is actually the second biggest error in it, and I'll get to that. But Rainey's is the biggest one.
Oh yeah, by far.
And it's the execution. It's frustrating. The next one is the Crab King committing all his forces when Daemon was walking to him. I mean,
that's a bit.
It's like
you're pushing. That's pushing it.
There was such a good battle, and that's what's frustrating, because it was so fun. Like, Daemon got cutting loose, was just so great. The thing is, though, they showed the Crab King very reluctant to send anyone out. And that contextualized, he was aware this could be a trap.
Yes.
He was aware very clearly this could be a massive trap.
There was many visual cues where he was looking outside and looking for the dragon.
Exactly.
And at first he was smart. I was like, oh, okay, so he's being reserved. He's sending them out just a few at a time. That makes sense for just one warrior. But then when he committed all his forces, it's
what's bizarre, I can't remember if his dragon came in to... I don't even think the dragon was there at that point, where he committed like a large group, right? And something happened. Daemon fought off the group. He gets to cover.
Yeah.
But Daemon was injured, and he even got shot in the leg.
Yeah, he did.
And if anything, that would have, you'd think, make the Crab King think, okay, I don't need to send out all my forces. He's injured. He's basically going to be much easier.
I'll just send out the guys that are alive.
Yeah, exactly. Just send out a couple more guys, finish the job. And so the fact that then he commits all his forces to
potentially thousands of men.
I mean, unbelievable, frustrating, okay? Because then, of course, they're all vulnerable out in the open.
Yeah, they are.
And the trap is sprung, and they get wiped out.
Sea smoke, then just
And what's frustrating about this, right, is this is one of those times where they could have had their cake and eaten it too. I mean,
They really could.
Guys doing House of Dragons, please hire me as a consultant. If you just want a battle warfare weapons consultant, and you have things like this, just send me the battle layout, the tactics of what's going on, just because... There are easy answers to justify what you want in the story and not make it dumb. And so the easy way to justify it, where they could have had their cake and eaten it too, right, is that Daemon needs to get close, right? Because you could say they have had... Oh no, this one's hard.
Yeah,
because I'm trying to say that it was hard to get the dragon close enough.
Yeah.
But the thing is, though, they already said that they just hide in their caves. All right. The way they do it is like, if the dragon lands near the caves, it'll be too vulnerable and too easy to wipe out or something like that. And so Damon needs to go there as a decoy distraction, okay, and get everyone looking at him, focusing on him, so the dragon could maybe climb up around on the side to get to one of the caves, and then fireball into the caves, and then suddenly that fire's spreading through and it flushes everyone out.
That could work, actually.
That could work, I think. And the reason why they weren't able to do it is that the dragon would be too vulnerable when it lands, and all the crab people army just rush the thing and kill the dragon. And so they just weren't able to do that tactically. But by Damon offering himself up as the decoy, that enabled to get close. Fire flushes them out of the caves. Trap is sprung.
And then you get your battle.
And there. Cake, eat, enjoy.
Yeah, unfortunately we didn't get that.
Okay, and what's frustrating is for me, I don't know, I'm immersed in the medieval stuff, the tactics stuff, and all that stuff, and so it doesn't take me too much thought to figure an answer.
I think that's the problem with a lot of media that tries to dive into battles and medieval stuff. They want these great big battles, but they don't necessarily factor in locations and how much that affects any outcome of any battle.
Yeah.
So, because I was just wondering, why wouldn't they just even send men in the caves? Like, just send a whole battalion.
Okay, so the kind of tactics they seem to set up is, one, going in, things like that, reduces their, if they had a larger force, it reduces that advantage completely because of bottlenecks and everything. And so all they need to do is have a couple of guys with spears and shields, and they could hold them off for ages. And that happened in real world battles, like
that's a good point.
The Battle of Stirling Bridge with William Wallace.
Yeah, that
okay, where they were able to funnel the larger English force onto a bottleneck, the bridge, the Stirling Bridge, and as a result, they were able to win that battle because their numbers advantage was restricted because of the train. And I think that's what they were kind of going with the caves.
Yeah. I suppose the cave idea is it's good, but yeah, they definitely need a better way to flush them out.
Yeah,
that would have
one thing that didn't make sense is they felt like that Damon's force would run out of supplies before the guys in the caves, but it's a siege. Technically, it should have been set up that it seemed like the guys in the caves would have a harder time supplying themselves without.
Weren't they funded by like the Triarchy?
They didn't. They were, but that's all they needed a line just by like that. It's like someone say
supplies,
there are some type of hidden entrances to these caves that we can't find, and the Triarchy supplying them. They can stay there forever.
Yeah.
Problem solved. Yeah. And so just a simple line like that would solve that potential plot hole.
Yeah, that's
the
thing.
Could have
with this show, a couple of throwaway lines fix a lot of problems. Another show.
Yeah.
Less lines.
Just cut the lines completely and you solve them. Just cut the scene.
Yes, cut the scene. Cut the episode. Actually, cancel the show.
Yes. Do that. So yeah, these are some of the bigger criticisms, but they are only like blips on the radar for overall fairly masterful.
And with
show.
the crab feeder one, at least it still helps Damon overall as a character, and does you get that trade-off.
Build up Damon is such a badass moment for him, and the fact it had such character work, and he didn't say a single line.
No, he didn't, and that was a big surprise to see because it's really good when a badass character is actually just allowed to show it and do their thing. Because that's the magic of the filmic medium. You can do so much with so little said, and even just him starting out with just reading the letters, going, okay, that's all right, and then he's like, there's that one part, he's sending me help. No, you're gonna steal my glory.
I love that so much. I mean, the context of that scene was masterful.
Oh yeah.
It just they just stumbled a bit on the execution because it revealed so much about Dalen's views in relationship to Viserys, his own strengths and weaknesses, his pride, and it was so good.
It all builds Daemon up and leads to another really great and impactful moment later in the best episode of the show.
And that's we're in the spoilers now. It's when Viserys takes the throne for the last time.
That was a special moment.
One of the better emotional scenes I've seen in cinema. It's up there with the best. With some of the payoffs in Top Gun Maverick, it's up there. That scene was a 10 out of 10 scene. Flawless.
By far, every moment there. Just everyone's reactions when he comes in, the absolute shock, just how music's swelling. I'm a big fan of music.
But not only that, it moved to something greater in my mind, that scene.
absolutely.
There is entertainment, and then there is something that uplifts and inspires you, and that's when entertainment moves on to something greater, something actually special, something that inspires us to be better. And that's that to me, that is entertainment at its height.
It's the magic of storytelling. It's
Exactly.
it's what has inspired so many people. Like, storytelling, when it's good, it has real power.
It does.
Just look at, for instance, here's an example in history. Alexander the Great was inspired by Achilles.
Genuinely, and that can lead to real world change. And this is why here at Night's Watch we wage the metaphorical crusade, because guess what? People with nefarious, goals know this as well. And they know if they can corrupt the culture through the stories that we tell each other, they can then start to corrupt the world.
Yep.
And we've been seeing it so much. And what I love about House of the Dragons, this actually has the thing that will push against such agendas, where this shows one of the greatest acts of masculine strength.
Yeah, it does.
You see in media and it's an old man walking across the room to sit in a chair, but that was one of the greater displays of strength, determination, but also duty, fatherhood.
There you go, yeah, being a great father.
I mean, it was incredible. Like you would want all fathers to learn from that example.
You would.
And you would be a better father as a result. And having stronger and better fathers in the world make a stronger, better world, better culture. And if you have a show that has this, that inspires people to be better like that, suddenly this is greater than mere entertainment. This is inspirational and uplifting, and it now it earns my love, respect, and honor. Like I will always remember Viserys, this arc in House of the Dragon, as something special. And when my kids are old enough for the mature elements, maybe I'll try and get a thing that cuts out all the nudity and that. I would love to have them see the example of Viserys the Peaceful. What a great title.
Yeah, it was very fitting to give him that, because I'm not sure that he even gets that title in any of the books. Maybe he does, but I
think he actually gets it. But even if it was...
It's great to have it in the show. That's
before I even heard that they gave him that title in episode 9, if anyone asked me what would be the best title for Viserys, I probably would have picked that.
Oh, yeah.
And I love... This is actually... why I love this so much. There are so many shows, and we actually have a recent example here, where they have a character that the writers want the audience to feel a certain way about it, but they lack the competence to be able to reflect that character in that way.
Yeah.
So they have other characters in the scene, in the show,
it's just
say the quality, like for instance with Captain Marvel, where they had Monica Rambeau sit down, it's like, you're so funny, you're so wonderful, everyone loves you, and she's been the most awful cow.
It'd be great to see that,
Exactly.
How about you show us?
They don't
that's
show these character traits. They need characters to tell us, like, oh, they're really like this, when they're not like that at all.
No, they're not. If anything, they're the opposite.
Yes.
It's like, oh, so you're supposed to be funny. I hate you.
I mean, we saw it recently in the Wakanda Forever trailer.
Oh, no.
Where they introduced Riri Williams, and she's just being this, I don't know, crazy, deranged, like throwing stuff and going and speaking, like they're really leaning into the stereotypical speech patterns and stuff.
I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked it's MCU.
And then like, just because they're desperate for the audience to like this guy.
Really
Like, I like this girl. I was like, really?
Can you stop it, please?
I don't.
Stop.
Nothing you've shown me is likable about this character. And they did it with Captain Marvel and Thor, whereas like Thor is like, and she's just being this arrogant, getting in your face, challenging Thor and everything like that, just up herself, complete Captain Marvel.
And as I understand it, there was a time when she was supposed to be one of the most likable characters in the comics, from what I know. I haven't read them, but I did see a cool Avengers cartoon where she was nice.
Yeah, right?
What a shock it was.
And then Thor is just like, she's done nothing likable. Thor was like, I like this one. And what? Is being likable in the MCU just being arrogant and up yourself and challenging people,
The answer to that question is yes.
Seems
Times
like
11.
They're strong female characters is basically being a female dog.
Honestly, I would take a dozen Rhaenyras, Alicents, not so much Rhaenys, but for the first bit, Rhaenys. I'd rather take all of those, because they are actually strong female characters.
They really
Especially, Rhaenyra gets some really tough moments that she has to go through. And I think the 10th episode really endeared me to her a lot more.
Yeah. Like, seriously, episode 8.
8 and 10.
8 and 10 really make me like Rhaenyra a lot. And she went through a character arc. She changed
did?
and became more mature. I loved that. But going back to the point I was saying about poor writers don't know how to write likable characters, and usually why is that the writers are usually awful, and then they model these characters after not only themselves but their friends and everything. Like we saw with She-Hulk.
Yeah.
She-Hulk was just a reflection of the writers through and through. That was just, they are so insecure that they needed to write an entire show that had a character reflecting their own lives to validate their own lives because they're so miserable and unhappy.
You see, my life is great.
It's great. It's great. Isn't it great? I'm so happy.
I'm dying inside.
Yeah.
I need to drink a whole bottle of wine now.
Oh my goodness, She-Hulk was just the biggest self-own to the creators I think I've ever seen.
I hope I don't have to watch that for this. I don't want to watch that. I've seen enough clips. I don't need to suffer for it.
And it's just so funny because they unironically think She-Hulk is a wonderful person and she's
They really do.
awful, right? And so incompetent writers who are not good people and they don't know what good people look like. And so when they're trying to write good, likable people, they're awful. And then you just have other characters in the scene need to tell the audience that, and then contrast and compare. Viserys, he has been shown and demonstrated so consistently to be peaceful.
He's a genuine guy.
I said multiple times in my reviews, before they even gave him the title The Peaceful, I said, it is clear Viserys' greatest goal in life is peace. He was reluctant, and look, he was too slow to act with, to help with the stepstones and all those things. And he was slow to act on a lot of things, but he was desperately just trying to find the most peaceful outcome.
I think that's why he was slow. I think that's part of his...
Yes,
a good
he was
part of his character,
peacemaker.
because he was always trying to find
I love
the
that.
happy middle
Yes,
ground.
I love that about him. That's just why people are trying to criticize him for being a bad king. I can't, because his goal was always just trying to find the most peaceful outcome.
He was a good man.
I said that. I said his goal was peace before they even gave him the title.
Which is
and
good.
then in episode 9, when they gave him Viserys the Peaceful, I was just like, yes.
It's even nice to hear Otto Hightower say it.
I mean, look how satisfying it is when, far from contradicting what a character is acting like, a show confirms and enforces it, and then you just get satisfaction and fulfillment by, oh, it's good writing, and you feel validated because they're validating the character.
Yeah, absolutely. And they wanted to... It's good that they weaved a lot of those moments for him into the plot where he had to try and make these good decisions and that it was really hard. I mean, it just makes it so much more painful when peace is clearly not happening and his family is being torn apart. Those scenes at both the funeral and episode 8, they were just really heartwarming stuff, and I'm glad that they were nice enough to not have Viserys see the argument that comes after.
Yeah,
It just allowed... Okay, so I know there's an interpretation where it didn't happen and Viserys is imagining his family getting along.
Oh yeah, I disagree with that.
I think it adds more if to all of those characters if they decided to act peaceful just for him.
Well, the thing is, though, they weren't all acting peaceful in front of Viserys. Because if you notice when Aegon gets to refill his thing...
Oh, yeah,
he
acting
gives
like
a dig, right?
Yeah, he's acting like a ass.
And the Jace stands up angrily, and then he's like, taps him on the back, like, good one, and then he
Jace definitely.
And so the thing is,
shows
though,
character
there was conflict happening with Viserys in the scene, and so if he was just seeing rainbows and daisies, that wouldn't have been there. And I feel there was genuine, happiness in that moment before he left. But that speech he gives, where he just says, I implore you to put aside your grievances,
not for your king,
but if not for the crown, do it for the sake of this old man.
This old man who loves you all very much.
Who loves you all so dearly. And it was like...
It was very...
It
It was a very powerful moment.
It was incredible. And...
Rhaenyra's reaction to that as well was a great moment.
It worked for that small moment.
Yeah.
It worked. And to me, that is the victory of Viserys' life. He achieved... for a small moment what he wanted, and it was other people that ruined it, but he did it. And to see his life end, he struggled for that goal his entire life, and essentially did achieve it, and it was other people that ruined it, but he achieved it. to me, it's a poetic ending to a
Oh, it
great
really
character.
is for that character, and I'm glad we got it. I think Viserys as a character does even a better job of showing kingship and true leadership qualities and just that resilience than anything that I've seen even in Game of Thrones.
I mean-
Because Robert Baratheon wasn't explored that much.
Yeah, but he also wasn't a great
And
king.
he wasn't a great king.
Yeah,
So it was great to finally get a good king and
Yes!
see it,
He was
what
a-
it looks like.
Genuinely, best king Westeros is depicted, by far.
Because most of the time we get tyrants in
Yeah,
a lot of
most of the time.
in medieval
Like,
stuff.
Was it even a good king at all in the Game of Thrones arc?
Tommen was a puppet,
Yeah.
so that depends.
Yeah,
Let's not. Joffrey was. He was quite the king.
we'll avoid spoilers. Yeah, so, I will love House of the Dragon just for Viserys' arc.
Easily.
And of course, then there's the payoff with the final episode, and it's got to build up. I'm hanging out for season 2 now. Those are the major points I kind of wanted to address. Were there any big highlights for you?
There's so many moments with Viserys. I think just that everyone's talked about it, but I want to say my I want to say it. That moment where Daemon helps him up the chair and crowns him after everything that has happened between those two. The fact that he is able to put aside that, I guess, frustration with Viserys and just crown him and acknowledge him as king, and even get to sort of be a hand for a second by enacting Viserys' will by getting rid of Vaemon Velaryon. Which was that added to something. I love how this Viserys as well. He's crippled. He can barely walk. He's still willing to take out that man's tongue.
I will take your tongue for that. So good. Now, look, if you wanted the deepest dive from my perspective on individual episodes, like I said, I have individual episode reviews. You can have a look at them all.
They're good. Watch them.
Yeah, but this is kind of a broad overview of season 1 again of House of the Dragons. And look, for me, this is like a show that stands on its own merit. You don't even need to watch Game of Thrones.
No, you don't. You really don't. And you know what? You probably shouldn't.
I like this more than Game of Thrones. I feel it has more uplifting characters. It has more better medieval weapons, armor, everything like that. I actually like the characters vastly more. I find more emotional satisfaction payoff in Viserys' arc.
I understand that, but at the same time, I really loved Jon Snow,
Yeah,
Ned Stark,
I get that.
Robb
I get
Stark, Tyrion.
And look, my own kind of, it had less nudity. I appreciate that as well. Still,
That's all right. Yeah.
But even I feel there was too much in House of the Dragon. But the fact they toned it down, and what's interesting, the sex scenes in House of the Dragon actually had important things in the story. Remember, nothing was wasted. They established character
episode
development
4 for sure.
In a big way. In actual in nearly every sex scene, was actually establishing something about character. Where was the one that was thrown away?
I have no idea, actually. You might be right.
Yeah, I think.
I know episode 4 had the most impactful stuff. That's for sure.
Most in-your-face stuff. But it was established. I think they certainly hold certain camera angles for too long. Feet.
That was
It's like, we got the message. I know they wanted.
weird.
I know that they wanted to just make it gross. You achieved it. Yes.
Congratulations.
Made us feel very uncomfortable, but we already got there. You didn't just need a. But even that was actually contextualizing something really significant about what Alicent is willing to do to get, what she wants and needs and stuff. And it's nothing wasted.
It certainly built her up as definitely a more flawed and even hypocritical character.
Yeah, and complex character.
Complex, which we want. We want more complex characters.
Yeah. And I like Alicent as a character. I like that she is trying to do good. I like that sometimes, I think it's a complex depiction of a character where she puts on a display of purity.
Yeah.
Even though she might not be as nice. But she comes off as a real character.
At the same time, you can still understand why she's, I guess, degrading herself.
Yeah, exactly.
Because she does have to do it, because Otto Hightower, her dad, did drill that one thing into her head, which is, your children on the chopping block. All right?
Yeah.
That is a big potential. There's a divide here. It's gonna get bigger. You got to act now.
Exactly, and you can actually understand that from her perspective. This is a mother trying to protect her children.
Yeah, which is an admirable quality. A lot of these characters, they have their dark sides, but they really do have these good parts of them that makes me feel bad for them. I feel bad for Alicent and where she is, especially when you see the show as a whole, where she started, just this innocent, pretty normal girl, and then turned into what she eventually became, which is sad. And you can kind of... That's the thing, that even in episode 9, it's probably the most flawed of all the episodes, but there's still things in there that are really, really strong. Just when Aegon's crowned, and he's just soaking up all the glory and all of that, and you just see her going like that.
Yeah.
And she's just like, yay, I've achieved my life's goal. It feels hollow. which is good, because, yeah, I would expect that. Even Aegon, he's an awful person, but he does get a cool moment with the coronation.
I know, you see another side to him. It's a kind of justified side. No one loves him. For obvious reasons. He's awful.
Yeah.
But it's interesting how the show actually does present an interesting situation that an awful person can sometimes double down in their awfulness when no one
tries to keep him in check, or
exactly,
put them in check,
or gives him any acknowledgement of perhaps is there any good thing about his character at all.
Yeah.
And so if everyone is hating him because he's a loser, and he is, right?
Yeah, he is.
That can lead and push people to go even more extreme. And some people have said that he was doing further things to just even get noticed by people around him. And then the fact that people were cheering his coronation is finally feeling love.
Yeah, and honestly, it was great to see a proper coronation, because we didn't really get that much in Game of Thrones. So it was cool to see the pomposity of it all and all the spectacle, because it would easily be one of those things. There's so much about House of the Dragon that just felt a lot more real. Because I know George specifically had frustrations with Game of Thrones because of its limited budget, where he was like, okay, King's on a hunt. Where's the hunting party?
I know.
And we got that.
We got a proper hunt this time. Yeah.
And the joust's very strong. And there was something I did want to bring up as well that's really good. I want to talk about that ending.
Yeah?
Yeah. Episode 10. How it... Honestly, I am impressed at how much they were able to characterize Lucerys Velaryon Targaryen. Strong. They did a great job with Lucerys.
Incredible.
And he's a good character. He's got his flaws. He wants to do well. He's unsure of himself. And I do like, even before what happens, he does start getting a bit of confidence with even just being before Lord Baratheon actually delivering the message, holding his composure, even though, well, good old Uncle Aemon's there, and he's very threatening, which that's a book thing, where he's got the sapphire in the eye. Thank you. I would have liked to have seen Euron's blood eye, thanks Game of Thrones. So it's good that they finally had a character have something lore accurate.
Good.
Just little things like that, they really help.
Now, it's interesting. I did have some criticisms about episode 10, about how justified was it for... Rhaenyra sending her two, heirs. But overall, like I said, I really like the episode. Some of the criticisms were answered in my review, where the exchange between the dragons that leads to the chomp, I wasn't sold on, but upon second viewing.
What was it you weren't exactly sold on with that? Because I've got something I'm a little shaky on as well with that.
It was Luke's dragon attacking the big one. And so at first I felt, look, it would never do that because it has all the other options to run away.
Yeah.
And why would it turn and try and face like something that could easily just chomp it and kill it when it had? And so I felt the first choice it would have by far would just be to escape. But then I think I was discussing this with my wife. The thing is, they'd actually been trying to escape for ages already. The dragon was running away, and she pointed out that an animal that has tried to escape and was being pursued and then starts to get into her head, doesn't matter if I keep running, I'm just going to keep getting pursued. Even though it has all these other places to run to, it'll turn back.
Flight has not worked. Fight maybe
remaining. And that and so it actually did feel like, upon second viewing, the dragon chose to, like, I can't get away. I got to do something. And so that's that cat trying to slash back at the bigger animal.
I think the thing with me was more what Aemond was thinking was going to happen by pursuing the dragon with Vhagar. I mean, I get it. He's like, he wants Lucerys' eye. Rightly so, I suppose, in his mind. But the problem is, you're getting on Vhagar, all right? You know you're going to be engaging in some sort of chase. How do you catch him? you're gonna have to do something.
See,
You're gonna have to either kill the dragon, jump.
the generous interpretation was that he just wanted to scare him and was messing with him.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
And he was just like, yeah, because he says a debt has to be paid. Look, I'm not sure there's enough in the show to justify. There is enough in the show to justify it, but not definitively.
Yeah.
Because there is equally enough to justify from what was seen is that he was trying to kill him from the.
That's what I thought. That's why
from the get-go.
That was how it was.
And that's
in the
why
lore.
his reaction when he succeeds at that felt out of character, because there wasn't anything to say before that point that wasn't his intention.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Kristen Cole thing again, where I know this character commits to this big, horrible thing that he does, but then he has an odd reaction in the show. So it's like, just commit to the reaction.
Yeah.
Eamon's already been characterized as menacing. He's already been characterized as wanting to... not really liking his nephews that much, so...
Well, the thing that does justify the headcanon that was just messing with him was the reaction. By the reaction, he reveals that, oh crap, didn't want that to happen. And so if he didn't want that to happen, the only explanation of him doing it in the first place was to mess with him. And it's like, okay, to me, that is headcanon that is actually justified by something in the show, which is the reaction, as I mentioned. And so I think that is a fair...
I could accept that,
And because it is drawing from... Because bad headcanon is when you can't easily or have anything to refer to in the show to justify it. And you're saying, like for instance, Sir Cole killing the knight, there wasn't anything to explain that he was defending Rhaenyra.
Yeah.
There's nothing that I can refer to in the show to justify that headcanon, so that's weaker headcanon, whereas this one, there is a direct thing to justify it where if he was reluctant after it happened, that contextualizes it wasn't intending to kill him to begin with, and he was just messing with him. And
I suppose I can see it that way. It's not...
it isn't a great leap. It's just like, all right, yeah. And I do agree that without that, reluctant scene, you could have easily thought that he was after the death.
Yeah.
But yeah. But
it's still a very impactful scene, and it does its job very well. And I'm glad that they picked that moment to end the series on.
Yeah.
Well, we ended up with Rhaenyra not looking very happy, which was also very, which is good as well. I'm glad that they left out. There's one certain thing that I'm sure Gary from Nerdrogs alluded to that I'm glad they kept out. Is it not going to be in
season 2?
It should be.
Okay.
It should be in season 2.
Okay,
and I'm glad it's going to be there.
All right. All right. No spoilers. No spoilers.
I'm not going to spoil. It's good. It was a good move to end where they ended.
Good. Alrighty. But hey, House of Dragon season 1. Brilliant.
Give it a watch. If you need some good fantasy, give it a go.
Content warning, of course. There's nudity in it. There's gratuitous violence. Not as far as Game of Thrones went, which I appreciate. I do not get nearly as hung up on violence as I get hung up on nudity, and it's not equivalent, by the way. All right, if anyone's wondering, from my own religious perspective, okay, from a religious point, I'm commanded to not look upon another woman to lust after her. Whereas there's nothing in the Bible that says you could not look upon depictions of violence. In fact, the Bible has some crazy violent stuff.
Oh yes, it does.
That it describes. Like this is one awesome moment where it describes someone drawing a bow, and they say he drew the bow to its full, and it shoots, it goes right through someone. Oof. Talk about, a woman being devoured by dogs and departed being... Because it was prophesied that this woman becomes dung upon the mountain. And so the Bible can get hardcore, right?
Bible goes places.
Yeah, it does. And interestingly, we get philosophical here. Yeah, in terms of depictions of violence, okay, it can be somewhat beneficial to not necessarily be desensitized to violence in such a way that you'd be reluctant or, that you'd be inclined to do it, that you like seeing it. No. But in terms of being desensitized to violence, to be able to maintain your composure in the face of horrific violence can be a masculine virtue, because sometimes people do get injured and stuff, and you need to be able to keep it in your stomach.
Oh, yeah.
Right? To help out sometimes.
Yeah.
And interesting, so my wife, okay, she gets really lightheaded at the sight of blood and faints and stuff. And, sometimes people just have that, right? But as a result, it's on me to be able to handle myself, because there was one moment where I work late, and so oftentimes I sleep a bit later.
Yeah.
And I wake up. One of my children, they got a small cut, and so, but small cuts on the head can sometimes bleed a lot.
Oh, yes, they
And
can.
so I wake up to one of my children with blood over the face, and my wife unconscious on the ground because she fainted. What the heck's going on? But it wasn't nearly as serious as you might think. My wife just got very lightheaded because of the sight of blood, and I came in to help out. And so
It even helps just being able to maintain your composure in like violent situations where
Absolutely.
you can be able to think clearly.
you have to think clearly, and so sometimes that can help out with that. Is well, being exposed to scenes of violence, not like go crazy or anything like that. I'm not saying go watch but.
No snuff films,
Yes,
okay?
all right, I'm not going there. But medieval knights, right, would take their squires and pages on hunts to be able to, skin a boar and stuff, or a deer, or a stag. Stag, different. Anyway, same, different. To get them used and accustomed to the sight of blood so they can be prepared for actual battle.
So they'd be good squires.
Because when you're in battle, you're going to come across blood, and you need to be able to maintain yourself. And because...
you will see
men
things
in your life when you have a family you're raising. It's going to be on you to protect them. That's your role. You'll be in most cases, statistically, near the vast majority, of men is going to be bigger and stronger than their wife and children. All right, and therefore it's your responsibility to protect them. And so that's why I'm not against violence in say this context. Because sometimes you do need to just be able to understand that it can be a reality of life.
It's something that's always going to be around, that could be around the corner, so you should know.
And for instance, in other times, I think it's actually appropriate to depict things as realistically graphic as it would be, like Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, that's an effective scene. That's an effective
But the thing is,
one
that shows how horrifying war really is. And I'm so glad they didn't pull any punches with that, because that's what it can be like. And so... that's appropriately graphically violent, and I think it's a virtue of the film that it was willing to go there.
Sort of the same thing with it's kind of why I respect George's universe, because doing the violent stuff the way he does it, it can just make you really be thankful for what you have, and that you're not in that situation, and you can just be like, wow, so that's what they went through, and just appreciate the sacrifices that veterans or anyone that has fought for others make. It's really important to do that, I think, at times.
And so, also so people can just understand my perspective on, say, the nudity side of things, right? I'm against pornography, and I do not equate all nudity to be pornographic, okay? And I would think, my own personal standards, that young children, even teenagers, and even, young adults, right, usually should avoid, depictions of nudity and stuff like that. It's interesting that after you get married and stuff, it becomes a more natural part of life. And as a result, I don't know, you grow a maturity around the prospect of nudity, just because you need to grow up and learn, to process it and stuff. And as a result, there is elements of nudity in media that is meant for grown-ups that I think can be perfectly appropriate and sometimes enhance a work as a result for certain impacts and stuff like that, and is not pornographic. So I'm against overly sexualized, in fact, any sexualized nudity in most media. But in terms of appropriate nudity, okay, there's an interesting perspective there. And there are some instances where I think the nudity in House of the Dragon does qualify for that. Sometimes it doesn't. Okay, but some it does, and there's a mature kind of use of nudity because it's a mature show. It's meant for grown-ups, and as a result, let any individual make their own choice. But that is my perspective as a Christian. On both of those things, okay? But I do appreciate, because, for instance, Game of Thrones, I think went way too far when they went out of their way to put in pointless nudity that was unneeded, which was extremely sexualized.
Here's the thing, I'm not even, religious or anything like that, but it was still, at times, I was like, okay,
it's like, calm down.
Can we get on to the cool characters and why I'm here?
Yeah, to me, there were elements in Game of Thrones that was explicitly pornographic, whereas House of the Dragons, I would say, vastly less so. I'm trying to think.
It's because these writers have more confidence in themselves and the material.
Well, that was one of my criticisms of Game of Thrones. I felt like the whole sex position thing was actually a reflection of their lack of confidence in their own source material.
That was D&D in a nutshell.
I think it's reflected more than just what we're saying here, because if they were confident in the source material, they would have used and been more true to it in the later seasons and stuff. And
then again, George has
look, George is George. George is George.
His I've read his work. I'll just say that. It's a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, granted. But still, like, there were certain scenes that the scene would have sailed on the dialogue and exposition alone. And they said that, exposition is boring, so we need something to keep people watching. We'll throw in boobs. It's like...
Yeah, they did it with Littlefinger a lot.
And lazy.
They did it a lot with Littlefinger, and Littlefinger did not need that. It was easily...
Yeah, he was in a brothel, so they justified
sort of, but... Again, he's had many opportunities. He's a master manipulator.
So many pointless things. So I did not appreciate that again. I know, look, I'm probably, one of the few. I think a lot of people like that about Game of Thrones, and probably a lot of our own audience does. But that's my personal take on it. And in terms of reflection on Game of Thrones, this is one of the reasons why I think... my reflection on House of Dragons, and this is one of the reasons why I think House of Dragons is a superior work.
Well, it gives you... Well, House of the Dragon allows for more characters to shine through, more dialogue, more world building, which is the stuff we want to see.
Exactly. So, exactly. Alrighty. There we go, guys. That is our season overview of House of the Dragon. And Marcus, it's great to have you with us.
It's great to be here. I'm looking forward to many more of these.
Me too. Looking forward to seeing you there. And until then, stay on watch.